Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 7 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I'm reluctant. I'm not so sure whether I should share the story. I've shared it with our listeners before, so if you don't mind, I'm going to share a very personal family story with you. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
When I was a kid, I had an older cousin named Johnny. Everybody loved Johnny. He was playful. He was a Boy Scout. He, he was the guy who knew how to, to carve things with a knife, and he just loved kids. I was a kid to him because I was so much younger than him, and years later, we discovered that he raped my sister. How horrible is that, huh?
Yeah.
And I truly believe that in doing that, he ruined my sister. I wouldn't even be telling you this story if she was still alive. She's not alive. Nobody killed her, but I think the life path that she chose was greatly affected by the psychological effects that happened because of what he did, because he threatened to kill all of us if she ever said anything, so none of us ever knew that anything happened like that. And I'm not trying to bring you down, I'm just trying to point something out. And what I'm trying to point out is this, that the guy was a nice, seemingly nice guy. The guy seemed to be an all-around trustworthy. This is a guy you can trust your children with. Mm-hmm. And we didn't see it. And every once in a while, there'll be a story in the news about somebody similar who works for whatever, whether it's a school, a church, a Boy Scout group, anything like that, right? And it tarnishes the name of all of those things when in fact it's such a small percentage of demented people that end up doing these things. But it's still, you still, all it takes is one. Mm-hmm. And all that has to happen is to your child before you're petrified. No, I don't want you to go to summer camp. I don't trust those kids there. I don't trust the male babysitter. I wouldn't either. I'm a guy. I don't want any, and not to say that a female couldn't do something wrong, but I'm just, if I have a choice between male or female, guess what? I'm going to pick a female. Mm-hmm. Call it biased, call it unfair. I don't know. Norman D. Bates has been with us before, and he always brings something very thought-provoking in his visits, and usually he's on for 10 minutes. I'm so happy that we've got him a longer period today. Norman is an attorney. He's the president and founder of Liability Consultants. He presents seminars on civil liberty issues. He authorized a bill on crime stalking in Massachusetts that was passed into law. He's a member of the Crime Victim Bar Association, and he's an author. He's on the phone with us to talk to us about preventing child sexual abuse in youth-serving organizations, and give us some ideas on how maybe we can weed out the people like my cousin Johnny, who, by the way, is also no longer alive.
Yes.
He died from some kind of diabetes complications. And P.S., my sister was not his only victim.
Victim in your family.
Right. Norman Bates. Good morning, Norman. How you doing?
Well, Larry, how are you today?
I'm okay. I wouldn't have brought that story up. It's such a personal one, and not to take time away from you, but it was the best way I had to kind of dive right into this subject.
Well, I've heard it over and over again, and I tell you, this type of crime is just so insidious. I have personal friends who were victims either from intra-family abuse or from the trusted parish priest or the coach. It's so insidious. It destroys the lives of all the people around that person, not just the individual victim.
Yeah, and as a man, and I don't know if you agree with this, but whenever somebody is afraid to talk to me because it's just me by myself, I always think, I'm glad that they're afraid. I'm glad. I don't want people to trust me because they don't know me. If they don't trust me, then that means they also don't trust the real bad guy. Do you know what I mean? I, as a man, become untrustworthy because of these other imbeciles.
And what it further makes this insidious is the people who are committing these crimes are like you've described about about your cousin, the nice guy. I mean, look in the news in the past week. Dennis Hastert, former Speaker of the House, a wrestling coach, who everybody was shocked to hear that he had victimized apparently one of his athletes years ago. And everybody's saying he's such a nice guy. Well, that's the part that's so upsetting, because I've been asked this question before about these pedophiles or predators. Do they look like a certain way, or is there any sort of a profile? And the answer is no. The person who you would probably least suspect. That's what's so unfortunate.
And gosh, okay, I'm going to push some buttons here, and I am not trying to offend anybody. I think I will be, though, by what I'm asking. But it needs to be talked about, and I want to hear from somebody who studied this. When the Boy Scouts did not allow gay troop leaders, I always thought that the reason for that was because it would be guys attracted to guys who are hanging out with boys.
Yeah.
I always thought that it was a simple reason to not have it. It was the same reason you wouldn't have a man over the Girl Scouts.
Mm. Well, but the logic there is so faulty. I mean, think about it.
I know.
How many grown men would want to have sex with a young girl in the Girl Scouts?
Well, I know, but all it takes is one. And I think that's why the rule was there.
Yeah, well, but I think it reflects the ignorance, frankly, of the people. I'm glad to see that may be changing in the near future based on what was in the news recently. But this whole myth that gay men are going to abuse children is ridiculous.
Or that men will abuse children. I mean, the same thing is true for a man overseeing a Girl Scout troop. It's the same exact thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that it can't happen, but just because you're gay doesn't mean that you're going to be a pedophile.
Right.
Two different animals.
But there are only two sexes to choose from, and so I think I'm not saying it was right, and I'm just saying I think I understand the reason for it. Maybe it was wrong, faulty as it may be, but that was probably the reason. But now you have some guidelines so that we could. Because that's kind of a tangent kind of a subject. But I mean, as far as the straightforward message here, you have some guidelines that'll help us weed out the bad guys?
Yeah, in the publication that we put together in the past year, it's geared primarily to youth-serving organizations, to give them some guidance on how to screen both prospective employees and volunteers. It's important to not ignore that group of people as well. And methods for supervising them, whether it's through written policies or otherwise. The publication was also designed to help parents get some insight on these issues, so that if you're going to send your kid to summer camp for a couple of weeks, that you might want to have some questions you want to ask, some very directed questions.
Yeah.
So the two parts really focusing on, number one, what kind of pre-employment screening are you using? And there's a lot of myths there about what you can get or not get by way of someone's criminal history, and all. A lot of times people think, if I have the criminal history check done, and here in Massachusetts, where I am, for example, that's going to give me information from around the country, and that's not true. It only gives you stuff from the state of Massachusetts. The same would be true if you checked just the county.
Oh, really? So it would be easy for somebody to kind of just cross the state line and just hide from anything that they had in their past? Okay.
Exactly. So you have to be more diligent. You have to determine where the person had lived before, and check that jurisdiction as well.
Do you think that there should be two people at all times with the children? I know we had a case here right in Ocala in our own city about a dentist that was abusing children, and I don't know where the dental hygienist was, but he was alone with these children, and it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah, you raise a very, very good point, and that's part of the supervision piece. And in fact, the Boy Scouts, sort of ironically, given the fact that they've had so many cases against them, started a rule back in the late 80s called the 2-deep rule, which meant that no one adult would be alone with one child one-on-one. There'd always have to be a second adult. in the area. And the case of something like a dentist you're describing, what I would look at is how did he have his office laid out? How were the treatments laid out? Were they open so that there was no way you could be alone one-on-one? Not only to prevent this from happening, but also just to give a level of comfort to the parents of the children who were going there to be treated.
A difference that I'm observing just in my mind here is that in the dentist office circumstance, the dentist is the top of the pyramid. He's the boss. In the Boy Scout circumstance, usually it's somebody else who's hiring the person who we need to be careful of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also, keep in mind as well, while most of these perpetrators may be the adult, it also could be an older child. You could have, an 18, 19-year-old male child who's doing the things like your sister unfortunately experienced with your cousin. With a 12 or 13-year-old child. We just had a case recently settled last week in Pennsylvania involving the same kind of issues. Older male child, younger female child. And he assaulted her at a summer camp program.
I think every normal person is probably on the same page with this one. So what we really need to dig deeper for, Norman, is the solutions to the problem. So let's take a little break, and when we come back, and the phone is ringing off the hook, by the way, so if you're calling right now, I promise we'll get to the calls, but let me get through the break, and we'll be right back with Norman D. Bates, Preventing Child Sexual Abuse in Youth Serving Organizations. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Variable cloudiness today with a couple of showers and heavy thunderstorms in the area. The high 82 to 86. There'll be a shower and thunderstorm around early tonight, then partly cloudy later tonight, those 65 to 69. Tomorrow, clouds and breaks of sun with a couple of showers and thunderstorms. The high 84 to 88. Thursday, partly sunny with a shower and thunderstorm or two. High 86 to 90. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
If you're anything like I was, the thought of getting older was the last thing on your mind. But here we are. For me, it started slowly. The lack of energy, never being in the mood, and when I was, I could never perform at my best. I tried the pills and other treatments with minimal results, and all but given up on my sex life. Then I found the doctors at New Male Medical Center. Wow, they made a new male out of me. Feel like I'm 25 again. I have renewed vigor, so much more energy, and no longer worry about my performance. New Male treated me like my situation was one of a kind, with a custom treatment plan that really works. I feel great. They can create one for you too. It does not matter if you suffer from low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, or just want to last longer. New Male will help you.
Call New Male Medical Center today at 352-404-4779. 352-404-4779. That's 352-404-4779. It will change your life. 352-404-4779.
All right, 20 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Norman D. Bates is our guest. He's an attorney up in Massachusetts, and so many more credentials. I'll just get to the chase. He's on the air to talk to us about preventing child sexual abuse in youth-serving organizations, and there are some phone calls waiting to get on the air as well, so we'll do them as well. Norman, thank you for waiting through the break.
No problem at all.
All right, let me, if you don't mind, just go straight to some of these calls. I don't want to make them wait any longer. Good morning.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, sir. Back in the days when I was in Boy Scouts, my father, was sponsored by the school PTA, and my father was the institutional representative. He represented the PTA as the liaison to the Boy Scout troop. And on a camp out, he would show up unannounced to inspect the camp out to make sure nothing untoward was going on. He'd show up either in the morning or in the evening, and make sure that everything was hunky-dory.
That sounds like one good idea, yeah.
I think that's a great idea. I've talked to my own staff here who have children too, and they volunteer, with some of their kids' activities. In fact, one of my staff is away this week while their son's in a camp program in Rhode Island, providing that extra presence.
All right, let me squeeze another call in. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning. How y'all doing, Larry?
Good.
Good. I was thinking, since we got so much technology going on, with body cameras and everything. And I was thinking, like, why some of the, troop leaders can't wear body cameras, and for as dentists and some doctor's office, why they can have cameras inside the office, and then it just going to be showed to either the authorities or those that are in charge. That way, the whole world can't see what's going on in the office. But still, it'll be a safety concern.
Okay.
Well, the use of
Thank you.
cameras. The use of cameras is actually pretty widespread in certain types of facilities, like daycare facilities and so forth. The balancing issue, though, is the privacy of the individual. So you cannot put a camera, for example, in a locker room.
That's
or
true.
Restroom area, those sort of things.
That's true.
Because invasion of privacy laws exist. And so there's that, a challenge that's created by that those considered, the balancing issues.
So is the best defense the screening before they even get to that point?
Well, this is the irony. You would think so, but here's the rub. And the rub is that a lot of these offenders are never prosecuted. They may be caught, there may be an investigation, but because of the youthful age of the child, or the lack of evidence, or the child's parents decide not to put him or her through the ordeal of a criminal case, there ends up being no prosecution. So unlike other crimes, the prosecution rate is lower for these offenses. So consequently, the importance and emphasis on supervision becomes that much greater. You can't eliminate someone because you can't not hire someone because they were arrested. They have to be convicted in order to not hire them. Otherwise, you're going to run afoul of federal law. So the whole thing comes down to how you supervise, training the staff so that not the offender. You can't train an offender not to be an offender, but you can train the other staff to keep an eye out for signs of potential misconduct.
Wow.
Spending too much time alone with a child one-on-one, what may appear to be some innocent touching, but it's all part of the grooming process that these predators go through when they're trying to pick a child to be their next victim.
And then you've got the honest people that when they're approached, well, you can volunteer your time, you can help the kids, you have to wear this body camera, then right away their integrity as a person is attacked, and we can't have that in our society either.
Yeah, that's right.
So if somebody falls through the cracks, let's say they've been screened, let's say the summer camp has done everything that they have at their disposal, and somebody still gets through, and there's still a case, and there's abuse that is alleged, and now the guy goes to court and he's not found guilty, but for all intents and purposes, the parents believe it really did happen and it really was this guy. Is there any recourse for those parents? Is the camp liable at that point, or how does that work legally?
Yeah, and that's actually a lot of what we do here. My role is mostly that as a consultant and expert in litigation and the civil suit side. All of our work stems from criminal cases, but we don't do criminal cases per se. So yeah, there is the opportunity to sue the organization. The Boy Scouts have been sued probably more than any group I can think of other than the Catholic Church. But I've seen cases. We had a case in your general area, mid-central Florida, a couple of years ago involving a Taekwondo instructor who was sexually abusing some of the young kids. And a lawsuit was brought against not only him, but the national organization who licensed him, if you will, who had been sued several times before. And it turned out this guy did have a history, but he was not vetted by the organization. So so lawsuits are an option. They're not always easy. They can be time-consuming. May take a couple years to get to resolution. But 95% of them get resolved before any kind of a trial.
And usually when a child grows up, if they come from a good home, their parents are telling them, don't talk to strangers, don't go anywhere with anybody. But when you place that child alone in a youth camp situation, and you're telling the child to stay away from isolated areas, don't go in these woods with anybody and stuff, when the child gets to camp, they view this as the normal thing to do, and they're going to trust those counselors.
Yeah, that's what these predators count on.
So are the parents allowed? Like the caller earlier said that his father was in charge and he would show up unannounced. Could a parent do that? Could I just show up if I have nothing at all to do with the organization, but my son is at camp? I mean, could I just drive up to the camp and walk in and say, "Hey, I'm here"?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great question that parents ought to be asking of the people who run the camp or the after-school program. You know, hey, I want to be able to drop in from randomly from time to time, and tell me what your rules are about that. And if they say no, we don't allow it at all, then say, well, maybe I don't want to send my kid there. So that's a great point you're making.
I wonder what the answer would be. I guess they're all different, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it probably depends upon the hours of the day. I'm sure they wouldn't want you popping in at 3 in the morning.
And the religious leaders, like pastors of churches and things like that, they're usually held up in high esteem. But it seems now we can't even trust them from wanting sexual contact with others.
So I think there was a piece in the news the other day about some rabbi in New York somewhere that same situation.
Wow. So we have a pastor here in our area who has, he and his wife have started a home for unwanted pregnant girls. Mm-hmm. And he, in the ribbon cutting ceremony, let it be known that he would never step into this facility again now that the ribbon has been cut. Well, once the kids start moving in, well, the young ladies, not kids, but
yeah.
Once they're in there, he will never be in there because he doesn't want that. It's the preventive thing for himself. Mm-hmm. To have the false accusation, the other side of this.
Yeah, you raised some great points today, and that's another one. That these organizations also have to take steps to protect their own employees, because if an employee is falsely accused or their behavior is misunderstood and they're accused, that could destroy their life as well.
Norman, thank you. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm glad we had you more than 10 minutes today. I don't know why in the past we've only had such a short time, but today we had a little bit longer time. The publication, Preventing Child Sexual Abuse in Youth-Serving Organizations, is that a book? Is that a downloadable? What is that?
It's right now it's in hard copy. It's going to become an e-book sometime in the coming weeks. It's only about 60 or so pages. It's bigger than a pamphlet, but small. I guess you call it a booklet.
Yeah.
And right now it's available through our website, which is liabilityconsultants.com, and also on the National Center for Victims of Crime, which is our co-publisher. They're on their website as well.
Okay, liabilityconsultants.com. And if you have any organization, whether it's we've got children there, this is good guidelines for you to prevent the situations we've talked about today. Norman Bates, thank you so much for being on the. You must get picked on for your name a lot, don't you? What was?
I'll just leave it at this. Number one, my mother's still alive.
Oh, good.
That's funny.
and it got me an interview 20 years ago with Jay Leno. So.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Thank you, Norman. Very good stuff. Good stuff. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. The acting head of the TSA reassigned after an embarrassing finding about the agency.
This new internal report shows that 67 out of 70 attempts to pass contraband material through TSA security screeners did